Hi, I'm your host, Dr. Lori, and welcome to Universally Unique, exploring the neurodiverse world of the extraordinary. This podcast fosters curiosity and understanding about neurodiversity while empowering individuals with tools for acceptance and inclusion in classrooms, the workplace, and communities. Featuring shared stories of neurodiverse life experiences, it sheds light on navigating a world not designed for diversity. Universally Unique starts now. Hi, this is Dr. Lori. Welcome to Universally Unique. My guest today is Jessica Papp. Jessica is the mom of a 12-year-old named Juliana who was hoping to join us today, but was not able to do so. So hopefully we'll get to talk to Juliana in the future. Before we get started, we're going to do 3 box breaths. I will count us through that. We're going to breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, and start again. So we'll start with 1 breath. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, and finish with a nice sigh. All right. Always good to take a few breaths. So Jess, thank you for joining us today. And I would like basically to start, if you would tell us about the journey that you and your family and Juliana have been on.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
So my daughter is 12 now, but our journey with her kind of medical issues started when she was about 3 to 4 years old. Before that point, she was just a very typical, happy, bubbly 3, 4-year-old. And we noticed a really sudden acute onset of very severe OCD symptoms, and to see that in a 4-year-old was very jarring. So some of the things we saw were excessive hand washing and just never felt clean. She would tap out different patterns on her fingers. And again, this little sweet girl, and she would just cry because she never felt like she was clean enough or doing things enough, or maybe there were bugs somewhere. So after about maybe 3 or 4 days of this, we brought her into the pediatrician, just her regular pediatrician. Before this point, we really hadn't had any big health issues other than we had a few rashes, diaper rashes, and things like that. That were long-term, but other than that, she had been very healthy. When we got in there, the doctor was concerned. She saw some of the symptoms we were talking about. And at that point, she said there's 2 options that she thought, and one was a brain tumor, which would have been very troubling, obviously. And she said the other thing is called PANDAS, and PANDAS, she immediately told me most doctors won't recognize this diagnosis yet. It's still pretty controversial, but basically she told me it has to do with strep. And so she, at that point, I asked her to do a strep test to see. She said we could start there, and it immediately came back positive. So it was a relief right away in that it wasn't something like a brain tumor. And we had kind of hoped that as soon as that strep was treated, it would go away. So for a standard strep case, typically the kids will have a sore throat and they'll go, or maybe a fever, they'll go to the doctor, get 5 to 7 days antibiotics. So they gave Juliana 5 days antibiotics. Um, and we saw like a sudden turnaround, like day 2, 3, amazing. And we were like thrilled. But after the antibiotics ran out, we saw this sudden uptick again in those OCD symptoms. So we went back, and the doctors said, we understand that this is frustrating, but there's nothing we can do, because at that point they would swab and it would be negative because of the antibiotics. It had treated it enough. PANDAS stands for Pediatric Autoimmune Neurological Disorder Associated with Strep. And so I'll be honest, I don't love the name PANDAS because people think it's like this cutesy little thing.
Yeah.
And if you say it, it even has a little bit of like a misunderstanding by people because it had been a controversial thing. So a couple of people I know that their children have it, they just refer to it as autoimmune encephalitis, which is
Mhm.
basically exactly what it is. Um, so you say pandas, and people are like, "Oh, what's that?" It's
Cute.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not
It's
cute
like a
little.
fairy tale. Oh, it's so cute.
Oh,
Yeah.
so lovely. No. And so we started this path where the doctor basically said, we can't do anything for you. So what do we do next? They said, you can head over to the children's hospital and go to the ER and wait and see if you can find somebody to see you. And so we started that path. First visit over there really didn't go anywhere. They said she's testing negative. They didn't really, obviously didn't know her, so they didn't notice any of the symptoms that much. So we said, okay, we went home. They said, kind of like, give her Tylenol and wait it out and see how she feels, right? And that didn't do anything. And the autoimmune side of pandas, basically the strep in her body, wherever it is, it's hiding basically from her body, but her body thinks it's in her brain. So her whole body ramps up all of its immune fighting response, and it goes up to her brain. So some people even say like it's like a brain on fire thing where your brain is just being attacked, 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 and obviously the strep's not there. So it's the immune system's not accomplishing anything, and so it's just swelling her brain, stressing her brain, um, to the point of we could even see her pupils would dilate so big that it was like jarring.
Oh,
Um, oh, it was terrible. So you see again this 4-year-old little sweet girl. We tried to let it go for a little bit, see if it got better. Her preschool teachers called home and said that she spent 30 minutes washing her hands and wouldn't stop, um,
mm.
which is just like absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah. At that age, you don't usually see that.
Mm.
I'm actually a little bit surprised that no one thought that maybe she had autism.
It's interesting because I think if it had been maybe even my son or some other kid, they might have gone down that path. But Juliana was exceptionally vocal, and she was
Mhm.
very articulate and very emotional and happy and bubbly and loving. So they did kind of say, this could possibly be some other things too. But with the really acute change in her, but then seeing that little bounce back with the antibiotics, we were pretty confident it was this. I'm a teacher, so in my town where I teach, I knew there was a mom who had a child with pandas. And I really didn't know much about it, but I remembered that for him, it was he couldn't wear any clothes on his one of his legs and feet. And if anybody touched it at all, it was horrible pain. And so I called this mom and didn't know her that well. And she spent hours on the phone with me and was just lovely. And that's, I think, one of the takeaways from all this is to see the support I've had just with people around me, just for no reason other than to help me and help my kid so that I can go help other people and their kid,
Yeah.
has been really cool. Especially when you go to the doctors and you're hoping that they're going to help you right away and they just don't.
Well,
Um,
it sounds like it's such an elusive situation, and there's not a blood test, there's not like some kind of scan that it
Really, no.
definitively defines anything. It sounds like in a way it's a process of elimination, because you said the fact that when she had the antibiotics in her system and they were actually working, it was like the light switch went down and turned the power off of all this
Exactly.
stuff that was going on. And then as it wore off, it went
Mhm.
back on. So there's like, it's like putting together a puzzle.
It is. It is. And I think now, so this was 8 years ago, maybe. I think so. I've done some kind of, they're doing like this very massive questionnaires and stuff for parents, and especially parents with one child with it, with pandas, and one without. And they ask a million questions, even like what foods they ate and all this other, to try to figure out things. So I think hopefully it's going to get better. And I know some doctors, unfortunately, most doctors that will go down this path with you do not take insurance. So most of those doctors are out of pocket, probably because they can't officially do some of
Yeah.
these things under their own whatever umbrellas. So, but they'll do like a titer to see how much strep has been in the body and if it's been in there long term. But a lot of people have strep too. So, yeah, so there's no like one test. Some people say it's OCD. But at 4, that's pretty rare to see such
Yeah.
a significant amount of OCD symptoms and tics.
And
What
those usually are woven in with other diagnoses that can be made more clearly.
100%.
Yeah.
And so this was, it was frustrating because we knew what it was. We knew with the, it's very difficult to get antibiotics, period, for anyone.
Yeah.
And then for a child, especially if they've already tried it once, they're very hesitant to give more. I think we maybe ruined that in the 80s and 90s with just
Yeah,
throwing
because they would give you an
antibiotics.
antibiotic for
Yeah,
like a little, and
anything.
you got an antibiotic. Yeah.
So we've kind of overcorrected now where doctors are like, nope, we're not doing that unless we know for certain we have a positive strep test. I'm like, okay. So um, after we waited and she was still struggling really bad, and it was just hard. Like I said, Lori, it was just heartbreaking. It was
Heartbreaking. Yeah.
we were just sick to our stomachs. My son was a baby at this point, so a lot of people said, "Well, she's probably just acting out for attention and things." And we knew that wasn't it, but we brought her back to the children's hospital, and we were like, "We're not going to leave here without some answers." That day, I had gone in to get her out of her crib, and she wouldn't let me touch her. She wouldn't let anybody touch her. And she said, everybody's dirty, everybody has bugs on them. So it was like this
Mm.
very significant, like almost break. And I couldn't get her to let me touch her. She was screaming. And I finally like got a blanket out and I said, "Can I hold you in the blanket?" And she let me wrap her. And that's how I got her into the car over to children's. Um, so we call that like a flare for sure. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's way worse. Sometimes that'll drop an hour or two later and it kind of the swelling might go down a bit. So by the time we were seen, she was doing better. She wasn't hysterical, but she was still um, stressed out and anxious. But they thought she was manipulative. They thought she was
Mm.
the one doing it. So she, um, and again, she was just this happy,
She's
sweet little
4.
bubbly kid.
Yeah, that's
Four,
kind of, I have to say that's kind of making me angry, even though we're well past her being 4. She's 4
100%.
years old. She didn't throw herself down in the aisle at the grocery store for cookies.
Right.
There's
Right.
something different about
There's
what it
something
was
else
she was
going
doing.
on.
Yeah.
Their advice to me was, so they said you probably don't have a lot of experience with little kids, which at that point I've been teaching kindergarten for 15 years, which they didn't know. And they said, sometimes kids will do this to get their way. And they gave me the number for like 211 and said, call and they'll help you find some parenting classes. And that
Hmm.
was it. And that was all they did. And I
Wow.
was so disheartened and frustrated at this point. They gave her a teddy bear and we left.
Well, and this is the main children's hospital in the
In
state
the
of Connecticut. This is where, especially in the northern part of Connecticut, everyone goes when they have a kid who has any kind of like major illness situation. I'm sure there's
Absolutely.
other people who use it for more like routine stuff,
Right.
but if you don't live right near it,
Oh, no.
that's the spot people go to.
Well, and that's kind of what we were like when we weren't going to drive an hour here for no reason, you know?
Yeah,
So, um, and it was very difficult. I think what in hindsight, I do appreciate our pediatrician at least recognizing it could be this thing, but it is disappointing if they had just been able to then and there diagnose her with that or something. Maybe we could have gotten help faster. I mean, strep is a very tricky illness from thousands of years. Scarlet
yeah.
fever is caused by strep. I mean, this is nothing new. I think just this one label for it is new. But basically, her brain was just so swollen. So we went and we went down the naturopathic route for a while, and things were okay. But because she was a naturopath, she didn't want to do antibiotics. I don't. So we ended up again 4-year old, 5-year old. At this point, she'd been sick for a couple months. She was just very tired, miserable. Antibiotics she had been on that, off that, and so then they wanted her to do like fish oil and a CBD tincture, and probiotics twice a day, and vitamins, and it was just too much. She was so sick
Trying to
from
get
all.
all that stuff into her. And
It was
many of
such.
those things have a tendency to make your stomach a little bit upset. So if you can't get enough food in her to put those things
Right,
into her, that's not going to help
right, and
you
she would
convince her
just
she's
shut
going to
down.
take it. Yeah.
Right. I think she almost felt like she was being punished or something too. At
Yeah.
that age, you don't understand, why do I have to do all these things? I don't want
Yeah.
to. So I kind of joined some of those like Facebook mom groups, and I also reached out to a few other friends had reached out to me to say, hey, I know somebody's gone through this or who went through this. So at that point, a woman named Susan, I talked to her. Her son had been struggling with it for years, and so she hadn't even heard of what it was at the beginning. So at least with us, we knew right away it could be this PANDAS thing. She was really good about saying like, don't give up, keep pushing, and in the meantime, here's what you can do. And so there was a few things that would help us. So some sort of anti-inflammatory, like an ibuprofen, would help during these flares. It would take her brain swelling down a little bit. Ice, just chewing ice, as much ice on her palate as possible, like
Interesting. Huh.
ice cream, ice pops, any of that stuff. And just
Little
putting.
easier to get a 4-year-old to eat an ice pop than it is to take a fish oil
Oh
supplement.
my, I don't even want to take fish oil, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and so ice, and then also putting her in like a tepid or cool bath kind of would
Mm.
help sometimes reset. And it wasn't perfect, but it would at least get us to the point of like we could kind of reason with her. And she was very smart, so she understood something was wrong, but she didn't understand why. Um, and so this went on for a very long time. It took us another 6 months or so to get in finally to see someone at Children's Hospital who was a specialist in this. And we saw him once, and he was wonderful. And we left there feeling like it was a miracle. The best thing he prescribed was antibiotics with like 4 refills, which was
Mm.
to me, someone who, my husband and I are both like rule followers and everything. And at that point, we were so desperate. I was like telling my brother to save his kids antibiotic if they don't use it, just in case,
Yeah.
and then we knew that wasn't right, but we also saw her suffering. So at this point, this doctor doing that was just wonderful. He told us to avoid yogurt, which was interesting. We had never thought of that, but one of the strains in yogurt to make it yogurt is strep. It'll say S dot like and then a word
Oh,
with a B,
yeah. I wonder
bacteria.
if that's why, though, they in like typical situations, they tell you to eat yogurt when
Yes.
you're on antibiotics to stop yeast infections, but it obviously has the wrong effect on her.
Right. So
Hopefully,
most
that wasn't her favorite food.
you want to bet?
Oh, darn
Guess
it.
what? I never thought I'd have to punish my kid for eating yogurt. She loves yogurt still to this day. She'll
Oh,
beg us, and beg us, and so we'll let her have it once in a while. And but we would. It's funny because like at school they would have it sometimes with the Go-Gurt things, or she'd go to my mother-in-law's or my mom's, and she'd come home and be a mess, like another, like a total like meltdown tantrum. And I'm like, how much yogurt did you have? And we would realize like she'd eat 4 yogurts in 2 days and she'd be a mess again. So I'm like, who
Oh,
knew? So she
yeah,
does love
well, yeah, well,
it.
and you would have never known because that
No,
wouldn't have been a thing that you would have
never,
you wouldn't have eliminated. Yeah.
never in a million years. Something else they showed us, which I thought was super interesting, and you'd be interested in this for sure. They have done now some studies with kids who are a little older, and they'd take a kid who was like a good artist, and they had a beautiful picture drawn. I remember this girl drew like a wedding, like a bride, this
Mm,
beautiful picture. And then during a flare, they had her draw. And then after the flare and after healing, they'd have her draw again. The first picture was beautiful and like very clear, and you could see all the details. The one in the flare was almost just random shapes. It was
mhm.
squiggles and random shapes. And this was about a 10-year-old, I believe. The third drawing was way better than the one in the flare, but it wasn't nearly as good as that first one. And
Mm,
that kind of hit me that this could cause some major lasting effects.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I don't think people maybe think about that. They think strep antibiotics and you're done. But in this case, it's basically your body's just fighting you. So,
Well, when
uh,
you use the word encephalitis, I think even lay people recognize that
yeah,
that's something bad going on in your head.
yes,
And
and
so,
autoimmune too. They
yeah, brain
kind of know what
swelling
that is.
can't,
Yeah,
even if you're not a medical professional, you would go, huh, that can't be
yeah.
good.
It is night and
Can't be
day when
good.
you say that. When you start with my daughter has autoimmune encephalitis, you get a much different reaction than my daughter has PANDAS. Uh,
Hmm.
and she gets treated very differently depending on what you say.
Yeah.
And my best friend is a BCBA, so she's been working with children for 20 years with needs. Her youngest actually ended up getting PANDAS too.
Oh, wow.
And she came to me, it was about 5 years later, and she said, and this is my best friend for 20 years. She said, I'm sorry. She said, I thought you were losing your mind telling people to save their antibiotics. She said, I thought you've lost it completely.
Yeah.
But I get it now. Like, I get this feeling of helplessness.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you can see how parents who have children too that we know what the treatment is, and
yeah.
maybe for some reason the treatment isn't available. I read something not that long ago about parents of children who had cystic fibrosis going, I want to say to South Africa, because they had reverse engineered this fairly new medication that is
Yeah.
incredibly expensive
Life changing, though.
and
Yeah.
life-changing.
Yes.
But a lot of people can't afford it, and a lot of insurance companies won't pay for it. So people are like going to like foreign countries and
Yeah.
buying things. And
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully that's working out for them. But we know, like, people were buying medications from Canada and finding
Yeah.
out that they were made out of
Yeah.
sheetrock,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is really quite frightening. I did do actually an episode probably maybe about 4 or 5 months ago with Cara Satolino, who is someone who has a daughter with cystic fibrosis, and her daughter
Mm.
actually has what was, I guess that's seems strange to say this, the right kind of cystic fibrosis to gain access to this
I
medicate
see.
to
I
the,
see.
I believe it's the same medication. And I thought, wow, I mean, parents will do anything for
Anything.
their children.
Anything.
Yeah,
Thousands of dollars of debt. And
yeah,
and these mom groups were great on Facebook, but that was another kind of sad thing is you'd see these parents who flew their kids all over the world and did these big, blood transfusions and all these tests and everything. And really what they needed was antibiotics. And
yeah. And
um,
it's frightening to think too when people are, and I understand. I mean, I don't personally understand, but I understand as well as I can understand not being in that situation, why you would try just about anything.
right.
But, sometimes the things that people are trying are also causing other issues.
Yeah, dangerous. And
So
can
we have,
bring you down the wrong road. But
yeah,
yeah,
we're kind of we're 30 minutes goes really quick.
I know,
And we're
I know.
hoping that, I'm really hoping we can find a time so that we can bring Juliana and
Yeah,
hear a little bit more.
sure.
But how is she doing now?
So, she's doing okay. What we realized that big first couple years, she needed about 6 months of antibiotics to get
Hmm.
to break through and finally heal that strep, which was very difficult. But after that, we worked really hard to try to get the school on the same page with us, with a plan. And I'm sure you've talked about 504s and PPTs, and we've had quite the journey with that as well. But basically, just this year, sixth grade, she was able to get a 504 in place. Um, we have been pretty blessed and lucky that she has not had strep that many times, maybe 5 times over the last 10 years. She did have her tonsils out, that helped. We've discovered like chlorine sets off this
Yeah.
immune system reaction. And you said the same thing. And so we've learned how to avoid certain triggers like that. And we know that sometimes she'll still have a tantrum at 12 that's not her age appropriate, but afterwards she's like, I don't know what that was, so there's still some things left over. For the most part, she's doing really well. She's a very smart kid. She's a very high reader and loves life, and she's joyful. And I know you had said something about what's the best thing you've seen,
Yeah.
or what is the best accomplishment. And honestly, seeing her just joyfully playing with her friends at school, and I was able to watch her being in the same school with her this year, just skipping and jumping and laughing and having a really great time with her friends. And that's been just amazing, because there was a time we were really worried.
Yeah.
So to see her feeling secure and strong has been really cool. But she's a tough kid. She's had a lot of obstacles, and some were probably caused by this, and we're going to be, coming up against them still for a while. But she's very strong and very brave. So I'm really proud of her. I know she would love to talk to you.
Yeah, and I definitely want, I'm hoping that we'll be able to schedule a
Oh yeah,
time with the
yeah,
two of you soon so that the two
sure.
episodes kind of come close together.
That would be
I did
great.
have an opportunity when you and I spoke before the taping to meet her briefly on a video, and she just exudes like she's just vivacious. She's very vivacious, which
Yes,
not really surprised because that's kind of mom's personality
a
too.
little bit.
But
Yeah,
you can see what draws people to her, which I think is, will certainly be her one of her strengths,
I think so.
because there'll probably be times when, she does kind of lose her,
Yeah,
her temper a bit. And
yeah,
folks, as they grow to like her a lot,
sure.
they will be more forgiving of
Yeah,
the, one time a year that she kind of
yeah.
falls apart. Yeah.
One of her little cute girlfriends said to her one day, "Did you take medicine today?" Whatever it was. She was, "Do you need something? Do you need some ice?" Like she started getting it, and I was like, "Oh, that's
Oh.
pretty funny."
I'll
You
go
know,
get you some ice. I love it.
yeah, I'm gonna get you
Oh,
some
that's
ice.
so good.
Oh,
Oh,
but no, she's wonderful, and I do appreciate you asking. And I think if I was starting now, I would just say push really hard and really fast, and don't take no for an answer, and don't feel like you're being difficult. Just
yeah.
just keep pushing, because you know your child best.
Yeah. I think that's the hardest part for parents when they find themselves having to advocate so hard that they feel like people are like, oh, it's you on the phone. I don't really
Yeah,
want to talk to you.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
here comes that parent into that meeting. And, and that's not helpful at
No,
all for the
not at
parent
all.
or the child.
Mhm.
And we have to understand, and what is that expression? You never know. You don't know what somebody else's life is like because it's
Exactly.
not your life. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
So, but
Well,
thank you so
thank you
much
so
for
much.
coming and visiting with me. And we'll work on a time to get Juliana in here because I think that that would be like super wonderful for the folks that are listening or watching the podcast to be able to see her
Sure.
in her her full
In all
self
her glory.
with
Yes,
full
yes,
blonde hair.
yes. Her new blonde hair.
So,
Yes.
that's what comes with being 12, blonde hair with pink tips.
Thank
Um,
you.
but thank you so very much. I very much
Thank
appreciate
you.
this. And
Mhm.
yeah, tell Juliana we're sorry that we missed her, but we know that she
Okay.
needed to do something else that
Yeah.
was probably at this point a little bit more important. So
Yeah. So we'll get her
we'll
in.
get her
She'll
in
be
here.
very happy. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
She's
get
like
her.
me. She can't stick to a little bit of time. So
That's okay.
yeah.
That's okay.
Thank you
But
so
thank
much,
you so
Lori.
much.
Nice to see you.
It was good to see you too. Emily, are we good? Thank you for listening to Universally Unique, exploring the neurodiverse world of the extraordinary. Join me, Dr. Lori, on Transformation Talk Radio every second and fourth Monday at 11:30 Pacific Time as we continue to explore navigating a world not designed for diversity. For advocacy and support for individuals with disabilities, let's connect. Learn more about consulting and life coaching at notoholisticconsulting.com.